So Aquinas stated that the light of reason is placed by nature and thus by God in every man to guide him in his acts. So therefore, human beings alone among God creatures use reason to lead their lives. And this is natural law. So hi everyone, I am Conrado Gerolia Jr. and my group mates is Ms. Jovilyn Celamor, Mr. Don, Mr. Don Esternon, Ms. Lorain Palencia, and Ms. Maricris Derilo. And we're going to discuss about Aquinas' natural law theory. So Aquinas distinguished the four types of law. The highest one, the eternal law. Second, the natural law. Third is the human law, and the fourth one is the divine law. But we're going to discuss what is natural law. But before that, let's just have a brief discussion of what is eternal law. So just like what I've said earlier, that it is the highest kind of law. So according to Saint Aquinas, it is God's rational purpose and plan for all things, and promotes a common good. Further, this plan it is certain way in God's creatures to have a tendency to proper act and ends. So why it is said that it is certain to God's creatures? Dito na papasok yung natural law. So natural law is a philosophical and ethical theory stating that humans possess intrinsic traits such as moral values and the ability to make rational decisions. A morally driven person can differentiate between right and wrong and good and evil. It is universal and constant law based on human nature and remains unaffected by culture, custom, or society. So, natural law, it is the participation of rational creatures in the internal law. So, going back to my question, that why it is said that it is certain way in creatures that God creates. We, we people, we are considered as rational animals, or we are born rational as rational beings. So, this means without being told so by the government or by the society, we already know what is right and what is wrong, and we are sensible enough and to make decision rationally. That kind of act, it is inherent to us as human. So Aquinas, Aquinas said that natural law, in simple, natural law is not written, but it refers to the eternal law that we inherently recognize. So, inherently recognize. Tayo mga tao, we are capable of understanding the world around us and moving ourselves based on our rational desire, which we call our will. And because of this, we have a prominent role in God's eternal law. So why it is said that we have a prominent role? Yun na nga, we have this kind of action that inherent to us to understand the world. So, but just like the other creatures, we have in common to them. Diba? For example, yung aso, when they get thirsty, they will drink water. And yung cow, they eat grass. And that kind of action, it is inherent to them. And just like them, we have that kind of features. So, for example, in remaining being or to survive, we seek food and to reproduce and to have offspring. But unlike these creatures, we are powered of reasoning. It means that we are not simply moving, not just because we want, or not just because bigla lang tayong gumalaw, but because we are powered by reason. So it means that human is gifted the capacity to reason. So the reasoning-based decision-making behavior allows humans to focus on what is morally correct. It has also established a connection between the law and morality, rights and obligation as human being. So this law of justice differs from the positive law and that there is no interference of the judiciary or the legislature in it. So just like what I've said earlier, that we human beings, we are gifted the capacity to reason. It is inherent to us that it is inherent to us, and we all know that reasoning help us to evaluate whether our feelings whether our feelings and institution about moral cases are correct and are correct. So that's why our reasoning is very important when it comes to our decision making. So bakit kaya nasabi na it establishes a connection between the law and morality, rights, and obligation as being human. So in the first slide, it was stated that it is a universal and constant law. And this and that law that is our own law of justice. And this positive law, when we say positive law, um it is the written law or man-made law that we do. So this positive law has no role when it comes to our rational decision making. So Aquinas argue that if we want to build a just society, we should follow the natural law. So going back to our discussion about reasoning-based decision making, also Saint Thomas Aquinas said that if you act according to reason, you are partaking in natural law. It means everything follows a plan, that everything has a purpose, which this concept is actually similar to Aristotle telos, which is the final cause or the aim for development, which is being discussed in Aristotle virtue theory. So, mm, so here natural law. So in natural law, we have here the human beings, and human beings have inherent traits. These inherent traits is our morality and conscience. Next, we have the choices and behavior. These choices and behavior have an impact, a big role in our rational decision making to able for us to distinguish of what is right and what is wrong. So natural law is theory asserting that humans are born with intrinsic traits, values, like morality and the ability to be rational in decision making. So morally motivated individuals can distinguish between right and wrong and good and evil. Just like what I've said earlier in the first slide, that we people, we are born rational. We are naturally motivated individual that can distinguish between right and wrong and good and evil. It is a consistent universal law based on human nature that remains untouched by culture or society. But however, it involves based on its intended use, function, and condition. So here, let me cite an example. So Gianna Molla. So she is an Italian Roman Catholic pediatrician, and her story is about her pregnancy with her fourth child. So she finds out that she have urine cancer, and she only have two options. So what this option? First, is to remove her uterus, but her child will not live. And the other one is to abort the child and to be able to remove the cancer. But what she done or but what she choose is she refused to the both option, both abortion and both the surgery during her pregnancy, which caused her to that. So saan dito papasok yung intended use, function, and condition? Sa case ni Saint Gianna, mas pinili niya magkaroon ng normal pregnancy. In natural law theory, inherently abortion is wrong because it doesn't preserve life. But according also to natural law, death is natural feature of human beings. So if you're one of the relatives of the Saint Gianna, you might say na mali yung decision niya kasi yun naging cause ng pagkamatay niya. But if we're going to base natural law, her death is natural. It is inherent. Dumadaan tayo doon. So, in this case, our morality depends on ourselves or depends sa kung ano, sa base sa kung ano ang sitwasyon. So, Greek philosophers Aristotle and Plato were the first advocates of the theory, but Italian philosophers Thomas Aquinas proposed the notion in the medieval period. So, much like Aristotle wrote that nature is organized for good purposes. Unlike Aristotle, however, Aquinas went to say that God created nature and rules the world for divine reason. So unlike the positive law, this system of justice is devoid of judicial or legislative intervention, but sometimes emotion precedence over the factors that influence a decision. So going back to the low chart, we have the choices and behavior. And that choices and behavior governs our rational decision making. So kaya nagkakaroon rin ng argument why sa positive law hindi dapat gamitin yung natural law or hindi dapat maging basahan ang natural law. Kasi napangungunahan tayo minsan ng ating mga emosyon or behavior and choices. So, how does natural law theory works? The natural law theory advocates that the effective implementation of the law depends on human beings' morally conscience and rationality. Therefore, the concept mainly focuses on being good and supporting good while avoiding evil. According to this law, the sense of right and wrong and good and or bad comes from individual choices and behavior. So to make it more simple, natural law, the main principle of natural law is that we should do good and to avoid evil. And in that, our individual choices and behavior affects that. So if you're going to ask, paano naman kung magkaroon ng isang sitwasyon where both choices are wrong? For example, there's a group of people that are starving to death and they're being offered papatay ka muna tapos babayaran ka, or and the second option of them is to steal money. In natural law, stealing is wrong. And um, ang pagpatay rin ay mali. But in this kind of situation, Aquinas will argue that you should choose the lesser evil, and that in that situation, the lesser evil is to steal. So the great philosopher Aristotle and Athenian philosopher Plato were the first advocates of the natural system of law. It is also finds existence in different theories related to multiple disciplines such as ethics, philosophy, civil law, politics, theoretical economics, etc. And however, one theory propounded by natural law theoretical Thomas Aquinas in medieval period that it is still the most influenced. So the other philosophers said that the Aristotle and other Greek philosopher was Christianized by Saint Thomas Aquinas. Kaya di ba in our previous slide meron pagkakaparehas, which is the telos. But his theory, or Saint Thomas' theory, propounded with the natural law. So still, until now, his theory become the base or become the foundation of the Christian teachings. So that's why it is said that it is still the most influential. So here, to sum up all of the ideas about the natural law is based on human nature, morals, ethics, and conscience, unaffected by culture, custom, or society, not governed by the judiciary or the legislature, common to everyone, irrespective of race, gender, and socioeconomic status. Next, it involves based on its usage, function, and circumstances, and not taught by the humankind. And the last one, it is universal and constant.
Let us now proceed to the next main points of this theory. So the natural justice system derived from ethics and morals is common to everyone irrespective of race, gender, and socio-economic status. So in simpler terms, Aquinas said that natural law is universal. So everyone across the globe is covered by this law. Ano man ang lahi, ano man ang kasarian, at ano man ang estado sa buhay, everyone possess the principle or the general principle of the natural law, which is to seek good and avoid evil. So it asserts that ideals inherent in human nature instead of being taught are the foundation of a just society. But the concept has been a subject of criticism concerning crimes perpetrated around the world. So, ang pinupoint dito ni Aquinas is that he believes that in order for us to live in a just society, we must follow or we must make the natural law as the foundation in our community. Bakit? Because we all know that natural law is objective while human-made laws are being subjective na. So, since God had embedded in us the human nature, which is to seek good and avoid evil, then it will lead us, it will direct us towards doing the right thing or doing the good things. So, yun yung paniniwala ni Aquinas na makakatulong ang natural law para ma-attain natin ang just society. But the concept has been a subject of criticism. So, many philosophers question the concept of Aquinas. Di ba sinasabi ni Aquinas na natural na sa tao ang gumawa ng mabuti. Pero, sabi ng mga ibang philosopher, kung natural na sa tao ang gumawa ng mabuti at iwasan ng masama, bakit meron pa ring or bakit marami pa ring krimen ang nangyayari? Bakit nga ba? So that concern was being answered by Aquinas. In fact, he presented two answers for that. The number one is the ignorance, and the number two is the emotion. Sinasabi niya sa ignorance, sometimes we seek what we think is good, but we're wrong because we're just ignorant. May mga circumstances na gumagawa tayo ng or we make action based lang sa paniniwala natin. Where in fact, kala natin tama, pero yun pala, mali, which leads to doing crime or bad things. The next point of Aquinas is the emotion. The theory states that there are times when the emotional overflow overtakes reasons that influence a decision. Anxiety, frustration, rage, fear, and greed are emotions that drive people to commit crimes, even though they are well aware of their wrongdoings deep down. We can't deny the fact that minsan, because of our emotions, we commit bad things. Yes, we have the rational capacity to think about the consequences, pero minsan, natitrigger tayo sa mga dilemas na ating nararanasan or nai-encounter. Lalo na kung ang emotion yung pinapairal natin. 'Di ba? May mga crimes na nangyayari na dahil lang sa galit mo sa isang tao, nakakapatay ka na. Yun yung pinupoint dito ni Aquinas. Although we know that doing this thing is committing wrong, we tend to ignore it because we are triggered by the emotion that we feel. So, yun po. Next. So, here is the diagram that presents the natural law and basic goods. So, consider ni Aquinas ang mga desire, ang human nature natin to desire things, which is, he believes, na binigyan tayo ng Diyos ng human desires para sa ating ikabubuti. At yun yung tinatawag niya na basic goods. So these basic goods are being categorized into 7. The number 1 is life. The next is reproduction, education, worship, social life, shun ignorance, and avoid offense. So let us further elaborate these 7 categories. So number 1 is the first good is to make sure living creatures preserve their lives. This understanding is what keeps them off from dangers. As human beings, or even animals, we tend to have the survival instinct. God gave us the ability to think to protect ourselves from any danger. So wala namang tao, wala namang mga hayop na gustong mapahamak ang sarili. Yun yung pinupoint dito ni Aquinas. So nature na sa atin na protektahan natin ang ating sarili at i-preserve ang ating buhay. So the next is reproduction. To reproduce is one of the fundamental goods for the society to propagate the human population. So, di ba, we promote life. So, in relation to that, we also reproduce. So, para mapanatili ang lahi, ang species, human beings, nagre-reproduce ang tao to propagate the human population and to produce the next generation. So, number 3 is education. Humans must educate their offspring as it is the foundation for their moral and behavioral development. So after we promote life, we reproduce, syempre we have the obligation to educate the offspring that we produce. So, sa tao, we educate children through schooling and through teaching them what is good from bad. So sa hayop naman, kung mapapansin natin, ang mga hayop, they have their own way of teaching their offspring on how to hunt, on how to survive, to live, etc. Yun yung sinasabi dito ni Aquinas. So these three, the first three, the life, reproduction, and education, it is being shared by the animal kingdom, which in science, kung included kita doon, yung tao. So both animals and non-human animals is meron nito. So the next is the worship, social life, avoid offense, and shun ignorance. So this 4 particularly is designed for human beings only because we have the rational capacity to think and to make decisions according to our rational thinking. So number 4, worship. It is the next step towards gaining a sense of morality and conscience. It allows differentiating between good and evil. So, bilang creation ng Diyos, He instilled the desire for us to know who is our Creator. So, itong worship na ito, mas sinasabi dito na we have this human nature to seek God. It allows differentiating between good and evil. While we seek God, mas nadideepen pa ang understanding natin. So, yung panglima naman po is yung tinatawag ni Aquinas na social life. It plays a crucial role in developing the moral character and sensibility of human beings. Even Aristotle, one of the first advocates of the natural justice system, called humans a social animal. So, ang tinutukoy po dito is that we as human beings tend to build relationship and have interaction with other people. So, kagaya ng mga hayop, we tend to belong in a group for us to be nourished and for us to survive. So, pinopoint dito ni Aquinas na hindi natin kayang mag-isa. So, yun po. Sa number 6 naman is to avoid offense. The next essential good is no involvement in any crime. So, as we build relationship with other people, meron din tayong natural sa atin yung i-maintain yung relationship na yun by not doing any bad things. Kung saan maruruin yung relationship na yun. Yun po yung nakapaloob dito sa avoid offense. And lastly, the shun ignorance. Avoiding ignorance signifies not forgetting essential goods at any cost. There are instances where humans bury their conscience and do something they know is wrong. Yung sinabi ko nga kanina, yung sabi ni Aquinas, kaya nakaka-commit ng crime yung tao even though they know that their action is wrong kasi nga it is influenced by their ignorance. So, as human beings, isa sa mga basic goods natin is to seek the truth. We tend to avoid ignorance because seeker tayo. Nabuhay tayo to seek for the truth. And from that truth, we tend to do the right thing. So it is also worth mentioning that the role of the natural system of right changes over time depending on its dosage, function, and circumstances. So although universal ang natural law, sinasabi rin dito na nagiging dynamic siya dahil na rin sa mga bagay-bagay na nangyayari as time pass by. So here are examples to be considered for us to better understand the natural law. So related lang po ito dun sa basic goods. So example number 1 is the natural law of economics. Dito, remember that the natural law does not only apply to the field of philosophy and ethics, but rather it is also being applied to the field of economics. Adam Smith, the father of modern economics, defined the 3 natural laws of economics. Number 1 is the law of self-interest. It lets humans work for their growth and development. So bilang entrepreneur, natural na sa business world na gawin kung ano ba ang makabubuti para sa kanilang business. The same as humans. We tend to promote life. So here, they tend to promote their business. So ginagawa nila ang lahat para ma-attain kung ano ang nais nila or para ma-maintain yung business. So the next is law of competition. Alam naman natin na kung pag-uusapan ng business, competition is always present. It states here that how competition encourages the development of better products. So, napupush ng law of competition ang bawat businessman to reproduce something that are better for them to gain success sa business. Next is the law of supply and demand. It specifies that output must rise while costs stay low. So, present dito na natural na sa entrepreneurs na mag-produce ng quality products habang natural na sa entrepreneurs na mag-reproduce ng product while using only a minimal cost. So that's it for the example. So example number 2 is the natural law of ethics. This natural system of law encourages people to make decisions based on their conscience. To ensure that a decision made satisfies the level of conscience, it must meet the following criteria. Number 1 is the self-perseverance. It urges people to take care of their health. Also, it restricts them from endangering or killing others. So, as basic goods ng tao, sa decision na ating ginagawa is palaging pina-priority natin kung ano ba ang makakabuti sa atin at iniiwasan natin kung ano ba ang makakasama sa atin. That is what this self-perseverance is telling us. Number 2 is behavior with others. It expects humans to be humble, polite, and kind to others. Also, it never wants them to be rude to others at any cost. Bilang tao, di ba, whenever we have a communication with other people, in-expect na talaga natin na ang isang tao ay magiging mabuti. Kasi nga, sabi nga ni Aquinas, natural na sa tao ang to seek good, na maging mabuti siya. So the same here, behavior with others. Sa mga ginagawa nating aksyon, nag-expect tayo na hindi lang tayo yung gumawa ng mabuti, kundi maging yung iba din towards us. So dito sa number 3, propagation of human species. According to this criterion, it is wrong if someone is sexually involved with the other without intending to reproduce. So based on natural theory ni Aquinas, to reproduce is one of our basic goods, di ba? So kung vina-violate mo yun, then your action is probably wrong. We humans tend to have a sexual sexual relationship with other people to reproduce. Yun yung purpose. Pero once na yung action mo is for pleasure lang, you commit, you engage in sexual activity not for the purpose of reproducing, then your action is immoral. That is based on the natural law theory of Aquinas. So let us now proceed to the difference between the natural law and positive law. So the law of morality conferred by choices or reasoning contradicts positive law enacted by the state or society. How? Bakit nga ba nag-oppose itong dalawa, the natural law and the positive law? So the former, pertaining to the natural law, is undocumented and guided by human morals, ethics, and conscience. On the other hand, the latter is man-made and governed by statute and common law. So, natural law, hindi siya written. So, wala kang makikitang record na nagsasabi na ito yung natural law. Because natural law is inherent in us. Pinuposes natin mismo ang natural law. Meanwhile, ang positive law, yun yung mga na kikita natin na or yun yung mga sinusunod natin na batas na gawa ng gobyerno. So that those are the common laws kung tawagin. Also, the natural system of right dictates human behavior based on intrinsic values, but the human-made law is subject to specific actions and places. Bakit nagkakaiba ang natural sa positive? Unang-una sa lahat, natural law is objective. So, it is untouched by the custom, by the culture, or any circumstances, while the human-made law is subjective. So based on na research ko, it says here that natural law is based upon principles and truth. It is inherent to creation. Meanwhile, the man's law, ito naman ay based upon dogmatic beliefs or the constructs of mind. So, nagbabago or na-impluensyahan na ito na positive law ng opinions and circumstances ng mga gumagawa ng batas or the legislators. So, furthermore, the natural system of justice enables people to distinguish right from wrong. Meanwhile, the positive law attempts to defend individual rights, resolve conflicts, and provide safety. So, yun na nga. Natural law, sinasabi talaga niya kung ano ba yung tama sa kung ano ba ang mali. Meanwhile, ang positive law, parang constructed na siya para ma-resolba kung ano ba ang mga conflict. So, for example, para mas maintindihan, an example of natural law is, di ba, immoral ang same-sex marriage because it does not promote the basic goods of reproduction. Di ba, if two men or if two women have a relationship or a sexual relationship, di ba di naman sila nag-produce ng offspring. Rather, it is merely for pleasure. So, it is immoral because it is unnatural. Meanwhile, sa positive law naman, dahil sa marami na yung issue regarding the homosexuality or the same-sex marriage, nai-impluensyahan na yung mga legislators na gumawa ng positive law wherein it will resolve the conflicts against the issue on homosexuality. So, dahil doon, itong positive law is nagiging legal na para sa kanya yung same-sex marriage. So, yun yung pagkakaiba ng natural law and the positive law. So let us now proceed to this concept of Aquinas. Natural law theory states that actions are right just because they are natural and wrong just because they are unnatural. People are good or bad to the extent that they fulfill their true nature. The more they fulfill their true nature, the better they are. So this concept of Aquinas tells us that human morality comes from our nature. So if our actions is in line with what our human nature is telling us to do, which is to seek good, then probably those actions are right. Pero kung taliwas naman yung ginagawa natin sa ating human nature and we act unnaturally, then it is considered as wrong. So that is the concept of St. Thomas Aquinas sa kanyang natural law theory. So that's it for my report. Next is Mr. Mendaro.
So hello everyone, I am Mendaro and I am the one who are going to report about attractions of natural law theory of Thomas Aquinas. So number 1, natural law theory promises to explain how morality could possibly be objective. So when you say objective morality, in the simplest terms, is the belief that morality is universal, meaning that it isn't up for the interpretation. People may think of objective morality as commandments from God, while other people may think the universe has some objective rules we follow. So, ibig sabihin, hindi siya about sa interpretation ng isang tao ang moralidad, bagamat sa belief. Tulad na lamang ng paniniwala natin na merong yung sa Diyos, yung commandments, yung 10 commandments, at yung rules na kailangan natin sundin dito sa ating bansa. That is how moral standards depend on something other than human opinion. Morality depends on human nature, not on human opinion. This pertains that the morality of human depends on what kind of nature they've grown and what kinds of belief they are living. So, ibig sabihin, ang moralidad ng isang tao ay nagdedepende sa kung ano ang kinalakihan nila at kung ano ang paniniwalang kanilang kinalakhan. So, next slide. Number 2. Natural law theory easily explain why morality is especially suited for human beings and not for anything else in the natural world. Only humans are by nature moral agents. So, this what makes us human unique from any other animals because humans are driven by logic and reasoning. And animals are only driven by instincts. And that are the reason why we the humans are separate from animals. So, sabi nga nila, ang tao daw ay, kung bakit mas unique sila sa animals kasi meron nga tayong logic and reasoning. So, kasi ang hayop kasi meron lang silang instinct. So, ang instinct lang nila ang gumagana sa sa pang-araw tulad ng ng isang hayop, kunwari, pumapatay sila kasi kailangan lang nila mabuhay sa isang tao. So, yun. Next slide po. Number 3, natural law theory has a clear account of the origins of morality. Morality originated with human nature. So, morality is a human biological attribute because they are thinking of predisposition to make moral judgment and to judge what is right or good or wrong or evil. That's why morality originated from human nature kasi ang morality nagsimula ng isang tao ay sa human nature. So, number 4, next slide po. Natural law theory may solve one of the hardest problems in ethics, and how to gain moral knowledge. According to natural law theory, we can acquire moral knowledge by, number 1, determining what our human's nature is, and number 2 is looking to see whether various actions fulfill it. So sa number 1, sa sinabing determining what our human nature is, it defines the core characteristics, which is the feelings, psychology, and behavior that is shared by people. And because of our experiences in life, and this is where dispute begins to tell who the predator is and who are capable to do great kindness. And for the number 2, looking to see whether various actions to fulfill it. So, meaning we're always looking forward for the good results of our every action. So, lagi lang tayo nag-ano sa magandang kalalabasan ng ating ginagawa sa pang-araw-araw in every decision we are making. Next slide po. Three conceptions of human nature. So, number 1, human nature is animal nature, but animals do things what are clearly morally wrong. So, the reason why animals sometimes commit moral wrong activities is because they only have their instinct, which is their survival. Example, a lion hunts animal for their food. He doesn't possess the rational thinking that says killing is wrong. Oh. This is moral wrong for us because killing other people or humans is a big sin or a sin in the eyes of law and in the eyes of God. And that is why it is moral wrong for the animals. Number 2, human nature is what is innately human. So, but the origin of our impulses are not relevant to the morality of our action. So, ibig sabihin, the evolution of or growth of human does not affect the morality of human in every action. So, dahil sa hindi porket nagkakaroon ng evolution, ibig sabihin mas marami na tayong nalalaman, mababago ang moralidad ng isang tao. Number 3, human nature is what all humans have in common. But if everyone were cruel, that would not make cruelty morally permissible. So this explains that we humans something in common. I have something in common, but it doesn't mean that we are all the same in terms of logic and reasoning. This explains that cruelty is not permissible because it is against to the natural law.
Now let's talk about the natural purposes. Most natural law theorists reject the three conceptions and instead insist that human nature is what we are designed to be or do. The theories, yung mga natural law theories, most of them reject the three conceptions. Yung human nature is animal nature, nature is what is innately human, and human nature is what all humans have in. They reject the idea of it and instead, insist nila that human nature is what we are designed to be or do. Natural law theorists want to believe that human beings have a specific purpose. The explanation for our purpose comes from the efficiency model and fitness model. Next slide po. Two models of natural purposes. Efficiency model. The function of a thing is whatever it does better than anything else. The efficiency model states that human nature is given by our natural purposes, and these purposes are whatever we are best able to accomplish. The main purpose of a human being is to live and survive. Natural na sa tao na magkaroon ng skills and talento. Mag-accomplish ng something to survive. Magluto para makakain. We are capable of living. Humans have the ability to do what our purpose is. Number 2, fitness model. The function of a thing is to do whatever enhances fitness or success in survival and reproduction. Fitness model. It clearly says that the purpose of human beings is to simply survive and transmit our genes to the next generation. Sa model na ito, nakafocus siya or sinasabi niya Didi na ang main purpose ng isang tao is to mag-produce ng anak o mag-produce ng offspring. Next slide. Problems for natural purposes. Efficiency model. There are too many things that human beings do efficiently, and many of these things seems clearly morally bad. We tend to use our efficiency in doing things, pero minsan, sa karamihan ng mga bagay na ginagawa natin or sa pagiging efficiency natin, nakakagawa na tayo ng mali. Although we are efficient, we can also commit wrongdoings. Fitness model, rape promotes reproduction, but is clearly immoral. A soldier who sacrifices his life to spare his comrades is acting morally, even though he undermines the natural purpose of self-preservation. Reproduced reproduction. There's a possibility na mabubuntis ang taong na-rape. To rape someone for the purpose of reproduction would be considered moral under the fitness model. But we all know that rape is wrong. The action is taken forcefully, so it is wrong. Both efficiency model and fitness model are flawed. There are many holes in both arguments. Natural law theory has too many contradicts to it to be truly accepted. Next slide. Natural law argument. If an act is unnatural, then it is immoral. Halimbawa, if nagugutom ang isang tao, the action is kakain siya. Pag ba hindi kumain ang isang tao, immoral na siya? Number 2, suicide, contraception, and homosexual are unnatural. Suicide, pinapatay mo ang sarili mo. Binabiolate mo ang nilalabag o inaalisan mo ng karapatan ang sarili mo na mabuhay. Ang contraception naman, humans are using pills and condoms in engaging sexual activities. Hindi sila hindi maperform na makakapag-produce ng offspring. Hindi sila magkakaroon ng anak. Same sa homosexual activity, parehong same sex, so pleasure lang, hindi magpa-function na magkaroon sila ng anak. Therefore, suicide, contraception, and homosexual activity are immoral. The weakness of the various understanding of human nature allows us to see why this argument fails. Premise 1 is false on all interpretations we have so far considered. Next slide. The argument from humanity. It is always wrong to deliberately kill an innocent human being. Number 2, a fetus is an innocent human being. Number 3, therefore, it is always wrong to deliberately kill a fetus. What goes wrong in this argument? In this argument, the premise 2 goes wrong. A fetus is an innocent human being. Namamali siya sa word na fetus because a lot of people saying that wala pang soul ang fetus, kaya lang siya makukonsidered na human being. Since sa natural law, it is defined that human beings have the capacity to understand the world, so sa natural law, mali pumatay ng may buhay, and abortion doesn't promote perseverance in life. Next slide. The limits of nature. The marriage argument. Marriage is defined as a relation between a man and a woman. Marriage is a relationship sa lalaki at sa babae. They married because gusto nilang magkaanak, magkaroon ng pamilya, and to transmit their genes to the next generation. Number 2, homosexual relations are between men and men or women and women. Same-sex relationship, dito pumapasok yung pleasure-only thingy. They have relation with same-sex marriage. So, inviolate niya ang purpose ng human na mag-produce ng anak. Therefore, homosexual relations can never qualify as a marriage. The basic philosophical point, we can solve substantive moral issues merely by appealing to the definition.
Natural law theory states that actions are right just because they are natural and wrong just because they are unnatural. People are good or bad to the extent that they fulfill their true nature, and more they fulfill their true nature, the better they are. When we say natural, it is the way things that are naturally intended to be. And unnatural is when human changes the environment in ways that benefit them. Like, for example, it is natural that a man is for a woman, but it is a natural example of an act if a man chooses a man or a woman chooses a woman. Simply says that homosexuality is one of a natural act, or because it is an example that what they want but not what they need in promoting life. Next, the natural law theory assumes that God created the world with a purpose, and every individual thing has a purpose. Aquinas was influenced by Aristotle, and he combined Aristotle's teaching with a Christian theology. He also believes that the fact objects can reason like humans means that our ability to reason was a gift from God. So in natural theory, all creatures have a purpose in the world itself. So mula nung pagkabata, naniniwala tayo sa kasabihan na lahat tayo ay may purpose sa mundo. So since God created the world with a purpose, naturally ang resources, kaya may resources kasi merong consumers tayo. And each individual has a purpose. And in Aquinas, in natural law theory, it is combined with the idea of Aristotle and Christian theology. In Christian theology, the fact that objects can reason the way human can. We have a comparison with humans and animals. Since human is considered as animal, we have similarities when it comes to promoting life. Animals have an sexual intercourse to promote life as what human has. But when it comes in intelligence or in human reasoning, thinking, it is different from animals and humans because we have the highest intelligence on explaining or reasoning things in all of the species that we have in the world. So it is considered as a gift from God because we humans can only do such things that animals can. And in natural law, it relies on the creator God, and the universe depends on its purpose and will. It's up to us humans to decide the purpose of God in nature. When we say natural law relies on the creator God and the universe depends on its purpose and will, naturally the world was created by God and the universe depends on its purpose and will. It's up to the humans sa nature resources. For example, it's up to us if we would take good care or not with our resources or the environment. It's up to us on how to manage things in our environment or to take care of it or not, or how we saw things. Like may mga bagay na para sa akin is maganda or perfect, but in others perspective or point of view, it is not. So it is up to us humans in our own perception on how we see things, but it is naturally given and created by God with purpose. It is in us and how we would discover the purpose of this one thing to us, the importance of this to us, or how we will be using it or apply how we would use it in our life. The natural law is the teaching of the Roman Catholic Church on sexual behavior, which asks that the aim of intercourse is to produce a child. Also, the efficient cause is the physical act, and the final cause is producing a child and giving it to life. They would argue that the pleasure is incidental. So it simply says that any sexual intercourse or sexual action must have a purpose or aim to produce a child or a baby. For example, sa Christian, di ba, sa Christian theology, sa Catholic Church, we really go against same-sex marriage. Why? Because the efficient cause is the physical act and the final cause is producing a child. So sa argument na pleasure is incidental, the pleasure is less important, but the final cause is the most important thing when a woman and man has a sexual intercourse. So any action na manipulate ang final cause is wrong. The modern obsession of having sex for pleasure or for having child is wrong. Any activity which prohibits life is wrong, such as using artificial contraception. So if you want to have sex intercourse with another person and the purpose is for your own or for the both of your own pleasure and using condoms or taking pills, it is morally and ethically wrong. Why? Because it doesn't promote life. It just fulfill your desire or your pleasure, your goodness, but not the aim or the final cause. So in natural law theory of Aquinas, the obsession of having sex is wrong. Any activity that prohibits life, even sa panahon ngayon, like the population is rising. Naturally, it is, but for us, it is natural in our generation to use pills or condoms or any artificial contraception to prevent life. But in natural law theory, it is prohibited and ethically wrong because even na may reason din ang paggamit ng mga parents natin ng ganun for family planning and to prevent having a baby, it is wrong because the sexual intercourse must always go with the aim of having a new child or produce a life. So basically, homosexuality is only wrong if you act upon it. Sabihin natin homosexual ako, but I'm not acting as an homosexual. I don't participate in homosexual activity. So it is not wrong to be a homosexual. It is only wrong if you act or you engage in acting upon homosexual activity. Any action that doesn't act towards the final cause is wrong. The final cause, when we say the final cause, it is talking about the producing a new life or producing a child. So it simply says in conclusion, it simply says that being homosexual is wrong if you engage in acting upon it. It is definitely wrong because this is the foundation of Christian morality, which is in Catholic Church, we go against same-sex marriage. A certain sexual activity will become ethically acceptable if this promotes life. On the other hand, if a sexual activity does not promote life, then in the ethics of Aquinas, this is definitely wrong. So that's the point. So let's talk about the indissolubility of marriage. When we say indissolubility, it's come from the word indissoluble, which means or refers to the abstract entities such as promises or treaties that cannot be dissolved. Parang bind na siya or demand of marriage. Parang ando na, hindi mo na yung mawawala. Parang ando na siya, hindi na siya mawawala. Like, kahit anong gawin mo, nando na talaga siya. So the pointers of argument from parental responsibility. So when we say parental responsibility, it has to do with the child. Kasi paano ka naman magiging parent kung walang child, di ba? So the natural law order demands that father and mother should remain together to the end of life. Children throughout their lives naturally need the guidance and education from both parents. So, in conclusion, marriage should endure throughout life. Marriage should endure throughout life. Partners should remain together to the end of life, and child naturally needs the guidance and education from both parents. Sa mag-partner sa marriage, they should stay together naturally, di ba? Sa natural law theory ni Aquinas, they should stay together no matter what. And sinasabi na ang child throughout their lives naturally need the guidance and education from both parents. Masasabi natin, totoo naman talaga kasi since we were born, our first educator or our first teacher is our parents. Since natuto tayo sa kanila tinuruan nila tayo maglakad, magsalita, even our manners and beliefs was influenced by them. For example, di ba? Kaya nga tayo minsan, pag may nagagawa tayong mali, kunyari, kung saan man, maling action or unnatural action, is parang yung binabato sa atin is yung, yan ba yung tinuro sa'yo ng parents mo? So, it reflects always sa parents mo yung action ng anak. But still, hindi lahat ng actions ng anak is the responsibility of parents. But in natural law theory of Aquinas, it is their parental responsibility to educate and nurture their child. So the marriage should endure throughout life. Sinasabi na the parental responsibility, parang prohibited dito yung paghihiwalay or yung annulment or divorce. So next. Objection to APR, objection to the what I said, argument from parental responsibility if the couple cannot have children. Does it mean that one is one of the good reason for leaving his or her spouse? Well, before I proceed to this topic, in addition for the previous topic, parents must protect their offspring and not abuse them, because if so, it would go against Aquinas' natural inclination of human beings, which is to take good care of their loved ones, their children. So the objection is, if the couple cannot have children, does it mean that it is one of a good reason for leaving his or her spouse? Well, based on Aquinas' response, if one leaves his or her spouse due to the fact that the couple cannot have children, then the certainty of offspring will be hindered. If the certainty of offspring will be hindered by such act of leaving one spouse, then it is contrary to the natural instinct of human species. If an act is contrary to the natural instinct of human species, then it is sinful. If one leaves his or her spouse, then such a person commits a sin. Based on this argument and Aquinas' response, leaving your spouse in such a reason is ethically wrong because it goes against the demands and solubility of marriage that I discussed. Their responsibility for one another and for a parental responsibility, given that they cannot have a children, would it be a good reason for them to leave his or her spouse? No. In conclusion, it is a sin to leave his or her spouse. Even in natural law itself says that partners have to do sexual intercourse or activity to promote life. But in this case, it is not said that all partners can or all couples can provide or can have an offspring. Maybe one of them can't, or the woman can't, or the man can't. For example, sabihin natin na yung babae is baog, but they are married. They already have a marriage. So it is not a good reason for them to leave one another, because therefore marriage is not just about having offspring. It is about if both can, but if one can't, then it is morally must to stay with your partner and be husband and wife in natural way, and not to commit a sin for leaving your spouse. Kahit na sabihin natin yung natural law is sinasabi na you have to promote life in such living and activity, but still, hindi rason yung hindi kayo pwedeng magkaanak, kaya iwan mo siya. Kasi sa insolubility of marriage, bind na yon, parang hindi na kayo pwedeng maghiwalay. Kasi nga, kasal na kayo, and then it is not a good reason na you can have an offspring or produce a life. It is not a good reason based on the natural law theory of Aquinas, because it is still a sin. Well, let's talk about the argument from spousal responsibility. When we say spousal responsibility, it is the responsibility of each partner for one another. It connects to both of them. Well, in the left side, it is the spousal responsibility of a husband to his wife. And in the right side, it is a female or a wife's responsibility to his man or to his husband. So the pointers are, in the left side, natural equity demands that the husband should not injure his wife. If a husband leaves his wife, then she might not be taken by another man. If she is not taken by another man, then the husband injures her. Therefore, it is unfitting for a husband to leave his wife. So, sa natural equity, given that spousal responsibility is a responsibility of an husband not to injure his wife emotionally, physically, or in any way that he could hurt his wife in any way. It is prohibited because if he leaves his wife, it is morally wrong, since they are both bind with each other in a marriage. They have their vows and promises. So therefore, it is unfitting for a husband to leave his wife. If in case na iwan man ng husband yung wife niya, it is considered that he injured his wife. Why? Because iniwan niya pa din. But kung iiwan niya naman yung asawa niya, yung babae, it has nothing to do with another man. Bawal, hindi pwedeng yung asawa niyong babae is mukha ng another man, because based on the Ten Commandments, sinasabi nga doon na yung bawal ka sumiping sa hindi mo asawa. So sa natural law theory, hindi talaga pwede iwan ng husband ang kanyang wife. It is his responsibility to take good care of his wife and not to leave her. So in the right side, we can see the spousal responsibility of a wife to his husband or a female to his man. A female naturally requires a male for procreation. So dito pa lang, naturally, ang man and woman really needs each other to produce a life or for procreation. Kasi paano magkakaroon ng sexual intercourse, di ba? Common sense. So in comparison to a male naturally excels in intelligence and in strength. Sa natural law theory, sinasabi dito na given na yung man is much more stronger and intelligent sa woman, well, yun nga, given na siya, so the wife is naturally subject to the authority of the husband for governance. Therefore, this is unfitting for a wife to leave her husband. So I will give you an example to these pointers. Number 3, so the wife is naturally subject to the authority of the husband for governance. Well, for example, may mag-asawa, di ba? May mag-asawa. Sa mag-asawa, sa totoong buhay, in reality, palaging nagdedesisyon sila as one. Hindi pwedeng isa lang yung magdedesisyon. Kaya nga nagkakaroon ng misunderstanding sa mag-asawa kasi minsan hindi nagkakaintindihan because mas may higher. Pero dito, governance talaga is yung man. And ang wife is for authority, parang guidance. Ginaguide nila pareho yung bawat isa. For example, may utang sila, like kunyari, they are in debt but wala silang pambayad. So parang kailangan nila mag-decide kung ibobenta nila yung farm or ang kanilang house. So in this situation, kailangan nilang mag-isip ng maigi. They have to make a decision as one. Kaya nga nagkakaroon ng authority yung wife para maka-decide ang man, para mag-guide nila or magkaroon sila ng isang good decision for both of them that could benefit the both of them, not just the husband or the wife. Therefore, it is unfitting for a wife to leave her husband. They actually, in conclusion, they both really need each other. So marriage is really important thing for both of them. So it is unfitting for both of them to leave each other. So Aquinas and natural law theory have an objection to ASR. I mean, it is the objection to argument from spousal responsibility. If man is willing to take another man's wife, does it mean that one has a good reason for separating from his or her spouse? Well, there are three arguments. The first is the traditional monogamy argument from nature. Man naturally desires to be assured of his offspring. This assurance would be altogether nullified in the case of promiscuous copulation. If a woman has another man, then the freedom of access to the woman is denied. If a man has several women, then a freedom of access to the man is denied. The male of the human species among all animals is preeminent in the care of his offspring. The union of one man with one woman comes from a natural instinct. In conclusion, therefore, matrimony should be the union of one man with one woman. Pointers number 1 said that man naturally desires to be assured of his offspring. When we say desired, parang sinasabi sa natural law theory na lahat daw, I mean, man naturally desire. So parang gusto nilang magkaroon ng baby or family, parang ganon. So this assurance would be altogether nullified in the case of promiscuous copulation. When we say promiscuous copulation, it is the sex intercourse of both man and woman to have an offspring. Naturally, they have to do such activity to produce life. But in pointers number 3, if a woman has another man, then the freedom of access to the woman is denied. As well as in a man has several women, then the freedom of access to the man is denied. Pag may affair ang man or woman, ang original husband or wife, and both of them have an affair, nadideny ang access niya dun sa kanyang original husband or wife. Why? Because they are having other sexual activity or sex intercourse with another person. So the access to the man and wife, so the promotion of life is manipulated. Why? Because they have several interactions, not just in one person, but with another person. So it is wrong. So in the pointers number 5, the male of the human species among all animals is preeminent in the care of his offspring. Man is preeminent means that leading to the care of the offspring. In natural instinct, it is the marriage or union matrimony. So the matrimony should be the union of one man and one woman. So matrimony means marriage. So marriage means a lot to both of the couple. Based on the argument from nature, it is natural to have an offspring, but it is morally wrong or ethically wrong to have another intercourse with another man or woman. So simply says that dapat magkaroon lang ng intercourse sa husband or sa wife mo lang, kasi sa marriage it is really wrong based on the Christian theology na din na nagsabi na yung having an affair is morally wrong. So in the next slide, we will be talking about the argument from equality. So equality is a condition of friendship. If a woman has many husbands, then the certainty of offspring is removed. It is true, and if a man has many wives, then the wives are treated as servants. If wives are treated as servants, then they are not treated with equality. If they are not treated with equality, then friendship between the husband and his wives is impossible. So if a man has many wives, the friendship between the husband and his wives is impossible. It is impossible to be friends with many. Excuse me. In a relationship of a husband with many wives, the friendship will not be equal on either side, both sides. Therefore, matrimony should be the union of one man with one woman. So I will just give a brief explanation to this topic. In conclusion, it is impossible for a woman to have an offspring and a man that have lots of women. Then the women and wives of one man is a slave. Then the equality from both of them has manipulated. In any gender, it is morally unequal or wrong to have an affair. It will only lead to misunderstanding of each individual. For example, kunyari ako, may asawa ako, I am the wife of my husband, syempre. And still, I have lots of men's. For example, I have five men's, but I have an original husband. I only have an original husband. Then, ang pagkakaroon ng procreation is impossible. Why? Because madami akong intersexual intercourse or activity na nagagawa. For example, sa limang asawa na yon, sa limang months na yon. And then, iba-iba, kahit yung husband, pag meron siyang maraming wives, for example, sa practice ng sa ibang bansa, like, saan nga ba yun? Sa Muslims, for example, it is their culture, yes, I respect that. I will be using them as an example on their practices. For example, sila, okay lang naman na magkaroon ng maraming asawa, but still, hindi mawawala yung bias, yung favoritism sa ganong situation. For example, meron lagi dyan ng least favorite, meron dyan wala lang, meron dyan favorite, may pinaka-favorite, may palaging ayaw, may kung ano-ano pang mga pagkakaiba-iba na pagtrato. So, pag ang lalaki maraming asawa, lahat ng babaeng yun is considered as his servants. Pero pag ang woman madaming asawa, hindi yung mga lalaking yun is considered as her servant because why? Yung nagiging sin lang doon is yung namamanipulate yung pagkakaroon ng offspring. So they have a different equality. The equality is not practiced in this situation. So it is morally wrong kasi yung final cause is namamanipulate yung equality and yung humanity still namamanipulate din. And it is really awkward to be friends with your husband affairs. Oo, sa totoong buhay, in reality, it is really awkward to be friends. Why would you be friends with his affair, right? So parang sa relationship, dapat equal, hindi yung sa'yo sa man okay tapos sa woman hindi. So kaya dapat sinasabi dito na at the end of the day, matrimony pa din yung magiging union ng both man and woman. Why? Because they are both bind with each other. Parang yun na yung parang pag nagpakasal na sila, parang marami na silang vows and promises doon na dapat sundin based on the Christian morality, the foundation of Christian morality that they have to respect. And it is their responsibility to take care of. So it is morally wrong to leave your spouse for having an affair or taking another man's wife or taking another woman's husband. Therefore, the marriage is really, really important under both argument of nature and equality. So let's proceed on the last argument, the sexual intercourse. The sexual intercourse indulgence, the carnal intercourse, can frustrate the begetting and rearing of children. So that's contrary to reason. So it is sinful. However, carnal intercourse can be used rationally when it is used in a manner consistent with procreation and upbringing. Moreover, carnal intercourse is the end of certain members of the body. So God, who moves all things, must have implanted it as the natural inclinations of such members of the body. So it cannot be evil in itself. In conclusion, it is unreasonable to say that all carnal intercourse is sinful. When we say carnal intercourse, trivia, carnal intercourse is the sexual intercourse of both men and women. Sinasabing sensual intercourse, carnal intercourse is a sensual manner, sensual, like it's it's a sense of touch. So, for example, it is only wrong if it is used for a wrong purpose. If the sensual intercourse is used for not to not for procreation and just for pleasure, then it is considered wrong. But not all carnal intercourse is sinful. Simply says that if a carnal intercourse is used by both man and woman to promote life for arousal, sa totoong buhay naman, di ba, in reality, it is really a need to have a sensual intercourse attached to for arousal or to then for them to lead to the next step, which is the sexual activity, the sex intercourse, then it is not wrong to use carnal intercourse. But if it's only used for pleasure, then it is wrong, or it go against the promotion of life. So parang, for example, if it if it was used for both men and women to have the next step of the sex intercourse to promote or produce a baby, then it is right. But for example, I am a homosexual and and I engage in sexual and homosexual activity and I use the carnal intercourse or the sexual intercourse. Yes, we will be having sexual intercourse, but it will not lead us to promote a life or to create a baby. So it is sinful because it we will just use the carnal intercourse or the sex intercourse for our own pleasure. So it is called sinful when you use this carnal intercourse, when you use sexual intercourse for your own pleasure, it is considered as sinful or ethically wrong for Aquinas. But if you use it in a good manner and the purpose of doing this such activity is to promote life, then it is morally and ethically acceptable based on natural law of Aquinas. So simply all the argument that was presented or based on Aquinas' response, all of this argument ended up in the conclusion of that marriage is really important and the matrimony is the only way for the one woman and man to be united and bind with each other. When you get married, both of you is considered as one, not that the two of you, but as one. In Catholic Church, we are being married with one man and one woman only and only because in Christian theology, it is a must for both of them to have a vows and promises to take responsibility and everything. And that's all. I am Lorain Santa Ana Palencia from the BSTM1C. And that's our report for the natural law theory of St. Thomas Aquinas. Thank you.